Welcome back to New Jersey Power and Politics. I'm Eric Lanskruner. From a budget deal to keep the money flowing to new leadership in the House, big week on the Hill with a ton at stake. And joining us now to talk about some of what we see here as a fresh start is New Jersey Congressman, Republican Tom MacArthur. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
All right, let's get started here because, one of the big things this week, of course, had to do with the budget deal. But why don't we get started by talking about Congressman now Ryan. How do you see this as a way for the House to move forward and leave the Boehner speakership behind?
Well, we definitely need a fresh start, and I think yesterday gave us a chance to turn the page and have that fresh start. Congress has not been very functional, and we need to do a much better job, and I think he can help. I think about fresh starts in yesterday, though, and for me, I hightailed it out of D.C. the moment after the election, because yesterday was the 3rd anniversary of Sandy.
Of course.
And we need a fresh start here. And last night for me was events in the district, remembering what we've been through. And there's a lot of work to be done, and some of it relates to what goes on in D.C., and some of it is just things we have to do right here at home.
All right, so you mentioned Sandy, you mentioned obviously it's been 3 years. There are people who haven't even started rebuilding their homes yet. It's hard to believe because they're still stuck in red tape.
Yeah, too many people.
So what can be done at the federal level at this point? What can be done in Congress to help?
Well, there's a few things I'm trying to do. One of them is people get denied the ability to get a REM grant because they took a loan soon after Sandy, and I've introduced legislation to change that. A loan that you have to repay and that's secured by your home, a second mortgage, should not be considered a grant that stops you from getting other aid. And we've been working with federal agencies to extend deadlines, to give people an opportunity to take advantage of the federal programs that are there, and it's helping. Since FEMA agreed to reopen the claims after fraud was found, it would now appear that somewhere between $400 and $500 million of additional help will come into this state and New York in total. That wouldn't have come. And that's litigated claims, it's from reopened claims. It's a big deal. And so those are the things that I try very hard never to forget. There's a lot that goes on in Washington, but I went there to help here, and that's my focus.
Let's bring it back, though, to the new speaker.
Yes.
How can Speaker Ryan succeed where Speaker Boehner may have had a harder time reaching out to the hard right in the party?
Well, I think, first, a fresh start is just that, and I think he has an opportunity to wipe the slate clean and try to convince people that we do need to work together to get things done. That is the main reason Congress doesn't function well, is people are more interested in fighting for every last inch of their agenda instead of compromising with one another, and that goes on within our party. It goes on across the two parties, and I spent 30 years in the private sector. If I ran my business like that, I would have gone out of business a long time ago. You have to work with other people to get things done. And you take the issues like Sandy or protecting our joint base and things that I'm trying to do in Washington, I can't get those done alone.
Right.
I've got to work with other people in both parties and people in my own party that might have a different agenda.
Let's talk about the budget deal very quickly. I apologize for cutting you off there. The budget deal, which would basically mean we're okay for another 2 years in terms of the debt ceiling, but what does it mean in terms of deficit reduction?
Well, I supported the deal because while it's not perfect, no deal is ever perfect, it achieves some really essential things. One, we pay our bills and we don't default, and that's important to our creditworthiness around the world. Two, it secures our defense spending for the next 2 years. And the 2-year spending level is above what the President asked for. It's important for supporting our joint base. It's important for our national defense. And three, it does some really important things for our seniors. There were some looming Medicare increases coming. It takes those off the table. It strengthens the Social Security Disability Fund. It does some things that really will help our most vulnerable people and our seniors. And so I think all of those make it a deal that was worthy of support.
How does this perhaps help or prevent the U.S. and Congress from having to come to these 11th-hour bargains and deals every year or two at this point? I mean, at this point, we had something over the summer and they said, all right, we're going to basically kick the can down the road for another couple of months, come up with a deal, and now we have 2 more years.
Well, it helps. Governing by brinkmanship and coming to cliffs all the time is a disaster. I am very hopeful that the new speaker and just a fresh start can stop that, because again, if I ran my business like that, I would have been out of business. Right. I think common sense just says you get ahead of issues that you know are coming. And yes, this gives us some clarity. I'm glad we've done it. And now I think the opportunity is, let's identify the issues that are coming and get ahead of them.
Let's talk about the National Defense Authorization Act.
Yes.
The President's veto, I know that was something, obviously, that you were very upset with. The President vetoed the act, and he said this. He said that he did it for 3 reasons. It fell woefully short in 3 areas: sequester, modernizing the military, and impeding the closing of Guantanamo. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think what we just did in this budget deal helps, because the funding levels are now settled, and both on the defense side and on the non-defense side. And so that was the President's main option, and that has been resolved. There's a lot in the defense bill other than dollars, though. There's authorizations. There's things that save our joint base from a closure commission, that preserve the KC-10 tankers at the base. Those pieces are still in the bill, and we have a veto override vote in a couple of weeks, and we're talking about options for either negotiating the bill and getting it done, or overriding the veto, and that's what's next. But I'm not going to stop fighting for the rest of the issues in that bill. Now that we've got the dollars settled, we still have to get the rest settled.
All right, Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you being on the show.
My pleasure, Eric. Yeah.
And please stay with us. Open enrollment